Thorina makes no real effort to calm his rage either. Aside from a token sentence in the beginning of the fight, all she does is try to smack talk back to him. It never occurs to her to say something like, "I don't know what happened to your mother, but if you'll just listen to me for a moment, I'll help you find her." Or actually, answer a question or two. She just kind of dicks him around and starts telling him how the hammer chose her as the worthy one, because that will, of course, completely make him willing to listen to her. So it makes her claiming that he's being unnecessarily hot-headed ring a little hollow. What's actually funny about this, and rather ironic, is that in the process of the fight, they actually argue about which of them is worthy. And Thordane can't actually come up with an argument for her worth. The best argument she ever manages is to repeat that the hammer chose her, for some reason. Thor, meanwhile, makes an awesome argument for why he should wield the hammer, that he has wielded the hammer through countless battles. He has fought with the hammer, died for the hammer, and he is prepared to die for it again. But, fuck that apparently. The hammer zips around, smacks down a few more giants before flying back to her hand, totally dissing Thor. He stands there stunned at what the hammer just did, remarking that it never behaved like that for him, and this somehow convinces him that she actually was chosen by the hammer to be the goddess of thunder. Why? Why? They beat up the frost giants in a single panel, and all the time Thor monologues to himself about how much better Mjolnir is in her hands, which makes sense, I suppose. She barely uses any of its powers or seems to acknowledge any of the many things it can do, instead just smacking things and hitting them with lightning. And as he sees how great she supposedly is, he says that he dies inside pitifully. Where the fuck is our god of thunder, and how did he get replaced by this whiny bitch? Once the giants are dead, Malekith takes off, but just to add another stake through the hearts of the fans, he takes Thor's severed arm and torches it to cinders, because Marvel hates its fans just that much apparently. I think it would have been less offensive if they had just come up to every fan's door, rung the bell, and pissed on your living room rug, but I guess they wanted to send a more subtle message. Now, on her way to fight the frost giants initially, Thorina had seen a bunch of people trapped in the ice. She didn't bother to help them or anything, but they both go back to let them out. Turns out it was Freya and a company of warriors from Asgard. Since Odin had abandoned Earth, she went behind his back and led a company of warriors to Earth to fight alongside the Avengers. Gee, thanks for not showing us that part, comic. Why would we want to watch something as awesome as the armies of Asgard and Earth's mightiest heroes teaming up to fight an army of giants when we can watch Thor get his arm cut off and defenestrated into the ocean? And I hate to bring this up again, but Freya is a war goddess. How does she get taken out by a few frost giants when even a depowered one-armed Thor could walk through them? So, since Thorette is of course a Mary Sue, everyone now has to stand around and marvel at how awesome she was for fighting the frost giants and stopping the invasion, even though we just finished establishing that the real Thor could have wiped them out on his own, powers or not. So what exactly she did that was so special, we have no idea, but apparently she is so awesome that Thor gives her his name. Literally, he is now the Odin son only according to him. She is now Thor in powers and name. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. The comic ends with Malekith approaching Augur and offering to buy the item from him that he was trying to steal with the Frost Giant army, to which Augur readily agrees. So, Malekith raised a Frost Giant army, invaded this place to steal the artifact, and then, after the whole army got beaten up, he just comes back and offers to buy it, to which he agrees to. Yeah, remember what I said before about that whole invasion thing being bafflingly pointless? Okay, I'm just gonna go fast to the last one because most of the problems with these scenes I've already pointed out, so it would just be redundant to go over them again. And ultimately, there's one big problem with this issue, and I don't want to have to go over it multiple times. Basically, here are the highlights of issue 5. Number 1, Odin becomes an even more massive dick and is now a flat-out Stalin-esque tyrant and villain, who treats his wife and favorite son like dirt, is described by his own wife as a despot, and frees his psychotic mass murderer brother, making him his chief inquisitor, and is so obsessed with getting rid of female Thor that is an all-consuming hatred that distracts you from all other concerns, and causes him to lock up his viziers and torture them to death when they fail to find her or find out any information about her. Fuck this comic. Number 2. Freya arranges a secret meeting with Thor to warn her about Odin, and they share a little girl power moment about how they're both women willing to defy what the men tell them that they can't do. Of course, since female Thor is essentially useless, and the one time Freya tried to do something on her own, she fucked up and almost got, her entire army killed. Yeah. Number 3. Thor gets drunk and pathetic in a bar and has to be carried out by the Warriors 3. That's pretty much it for the comic. Except, of course, for the big one. Oh, fuck. This is the shit that we were leading up to. Okay, I saved this one for last because it's the one that's the most obvious example of what I've been talking about, and the most rage-inducing. This is the scene that prompted the article in Breitbart and caused all fanboys everywhere to rage. It basically starts in a side little useless scene in which Thor is fighting Crusher Creel, the Absorbing Man, and his wife Titania. Creel is one of the classic Thor villains, and one of Thor's most powerful foes to fight, along with his wife, who is one of the most powerful female characters in the Marvel Universe. So, you're thinking, ooh, finally a tough fight, finally a good chance for Thorina to show us that she's got some real fighting chops and might actually be a decent Thor. You can probably already guess that it's not going to end like that. First, take a look at this panel. Damn feminists are ruining everything, huh? I seem to recall that sentiment coming from a lot of the comic book fans who were complaining about this comic. That's probably a coincidence, right? Next panel. Get your own identity. That's what all of the detractors of this comic have been saying. So, okay. Damn feminists are ruining everything, get your own identity, blah blah blah. So in other words, they're using Crusher Creel, a walking Neanderthalish thug, as a mouthpiece for the people that are criticizing them. Huh. Okay. Well, I'm sure that they at least have a reasonable and intelligent counter-argument to that, and will support their position rationally. Further down. So, that is their response to their detractors. She just punches him, breaking his jaw for disparaging feminism. So basically, the writers and skid stains at Marvel couldn't actually address their critics directly because they clearly had no defense for this, so they put a bunch of strawman arguments into the mouth of a British thug and had their Lady Thor show them what for with her fists of feminist fury. Are you happy, Marvel? Seriously, are you? Are you really? You just wasted 5 comic pages, quite a bit of money, employed bad writing and characterization, all to win a goddamn argument on the internet. You have officially turned the Thor comic into Sonichu. You may as well just put Chris Chan on the payroll. So, to place the cherry topping on this shit sundae, Titania decides to show up about then. Upon seeing Dame Thor, she has the typical surprise of seeing a woman acting as Thor, then knocks her husband out and surrenders in the name of the sisterhood. No, seriously, take a look. If you ever hear someone say to you that Marvel is not doing this to pander to and hoard themselves out to feminists, just show them this issue. Seriously, could this be any more blatant? It would have been more subtle if Thor had just preemptively broken into a song and dance number about how men are always trying to keep women down while holding a copy of the Scum Manifesto. By the way, for those who don't know about Titania, one of her main character traits is that she is obsessed with being the strongest woman in the world. It's why she hates She-Hulk so much. So, one would think that now that there's a female Thor, she would go straight for her and try to establish who wears the mommy panties. Instead, she gives She-Thor a fracking girl power pass, meaning that we get another action cock block, and She-Thor wins because vagina. I want to make this clear. In the course of 5 issues, the mighty female Thor, the great warrior who is worthy of wielding the legendary hammer Mjolnir, has only managed to defeat a few frost giant moves. Every major villain has either escaped, been led away, or has surrendered for a contrived and audience-insulting reason. I was not kidding when I said before that this character is utterly worthless to the plot. You could literally just remove her and everything would have stayed exactly the same. She fights the Frost Giants in the second and third issues, yes, but by the time she gets to the actual villains and the real conflict, Thor has arrived there too, which means that if she wasn't there, Thor would have shown up at the exact same time to handle things, and again, Malekith just ran away anyhow. The conversation she has with Freya is irrelevant to the plot, and the whole girl power go feminism scene with Titania and Creel was just a pointless aside that was tossed into the issue so that they could deliver their go gyno go message and pummel their strawman critics. There is not a single thing that this character does which has any bearing of any kind on the plot. Real Thor, even with no hammer and one arm, is still far more of a protagonist than this scrawny little piece of feminist fluff is. And this basically accentuates the glaring problem that overwhelms the entire comic. That, as has been pointed out before, it's a feminist propaganda vehicle and nothing more. And just like every other one of its kind, it sucks because it has to sacrifice telling any sort of decent story in order to perpetuate its ideological narrative. See, She-Thor is, at her core, just a vehicle for feminist commentary about what it's like for a woman to be trying to do a job traditionally done by man, or at least how they imagine it is for a woman to do such a thing. Every character talks about her as if she is a woman first and foremost, before she is any real person. In fact, almost every scene has someone mention at least once that she's a woman trying to fill Thor's shoes. The men all make fun of her for being inadequate and doing a man's job, telling her she can't do the job as well as a man, and we're supposed to take her side and recognize her as a strong and tough woman who is not just as good as a man but better, except that they're right. She is completely inferior to the man she's replacing in every way. Hell, the only reason she even has a comic is because they used writer Fiat to take the powers away from the man and give it to her. She's powerful and special only because the hammer says so, with no enduring qualities because the only quality she needs to display is the shallow feminist-induced qualities that she needs to make her case. One of the largest flaws with feminism's pretensions to trying to teach society to think of women as strong is that they don't understand how strength works. They think of strength as some kind of default state which one has by virtue of birth and just needs to be recognized by everyone else. Of course, a strong person doesn't need to have themselves validated like that, but that's a bit complex for them, which is why they keep demanding to be treated like strong women and equals to men. What they don't grasp is that strength is not bestowed by common consensus. It's earned, it's forged through trial and suffering, it's proven. The reason men are considered to be strong is because traditionally men are the ones who did all those things, the ones who did the hard work. Men are the ones who fight the wars and suffer to protect and defend their loved ones. It isn't that some group got together one day and decided that we should label all men as strong and all women as weak. And this applies to women too. The women we think of as strong in real life are the ones who have fought and overcome the difficulties of life. We don't think they are strong simply because they are women. Having a vajayjay does not make you strong, any more than having a PP does. But feminists want to be strong because they're women, not because they really are strong. They want the perks, but not the work, because they can't do the work. In any sort of merit-based system, they lose spectacularly. Compare She-Thor to real Thor in this. Thor spends all 4 issues fighting to save Midgard from the Frost Giants, despite constantly being knocked down and kicked around by his hammer, and even losing his arm to the villains. At no point does he waver in this. Even at the worst of times, he fights constantly to protect the people of the world that he calls home, no matter what it costs him, and it costs him a lot in this comic. She-Thor does nothing useful, suffers nothing, has nothing to overcome, and the only time she actually gets in any sort of trouble is because she was stupid and lost her hammer on the other side of a fucking door. Even if you fix all the technical flaws and ignore the gender flipping and degradation of a beloved superhero, the plot is dull, relies on fiat, the characters are horrible and unlikely, and the hero of the story isn't. Fuck this shit comic, fuck Marvel, and fuck this insipid blonde bimbo they put in a red cape. Oh. Okay, I'm done with this. See you guys later, like and subscribe, and I'm gone.